Welcome back to our channel. The channel where we tell the stories they tried to bury, highlight the voices they tried to silence, and celebrate the victories that rose from pain, pressure, and perseverance. Today's story begins with the name Marcus Jennings. Marcus always knew he was different. Not less, just different. While other kids solved math problems in seconds, Marcus would sit for minutes, confused, frustrated, his heart pounding as the teacher's eyes passed over like a spotlight he never asked for. You're bright, but you try hard, but you're not exactly gifted, are you? By the time Marcus turned 10, he'd heard that word enough to taste it. But he's slow. But he's not honors material. But he won't keep up. What they didn't see, what they refused to see, was how his mind lit up when he finally grasped the concept. Not fast, but deep. They missed the way he stayed after class. Not to kiss up, not to waste time, but to ask the kind of questions no one else even thought to ask. And when they pushed him into remedial classes, when they locked the doors to the advanced rooms, when they quietly folded his dreams and filed them under never, he didn't scream. He didn't argue. He listened. He remembered every tone, every chuckle, every sigh of disbelief, because Marcus promised himself one day they'd say his name and they'd have to whisper it with respect. He had one champion, one believer, one person who saw him not as broken, not as behind, but as building. Lottie Mae, his grandmother, a retired librarian who lived in a modest apartment that smelled like old books and peppermint tea. Her walls were stacked with towers of history, science, math, poetry, and even textbooks older than the schools themselves. They might not teach you the way you need, baby, she'd whisper as they sat cross-legged on the floor. But that don't mean you can't learn. Every night, Marcus sat beside her, reading slowly, deliberately, decoding lines like ancient scripture. He didn't fly through chapters. He absorbed them. He didn't breeze through pages. He built his brain like a fortress. I may be slow, he told her once, but I don't forget. And she smiled because she knew high school wasn't much kinder. Marcus became the kid in the back, the one no one picked for projects. Teachers marked him present, but he may as well have been invisible until sophomore year when something shifted. A new teacher walked into the building, Mr. Cleveland, young, black, sharp, with a gaze that could cut through facades and spot buried potential. He saw something in Marcus, invited him to stay after class, not for detention, but for discovery. He gave him logic puzzles, advanced math problems, textbooks 2 levels above his class. The other students laughed. Why him? They smirked. He ain't even on grade level. But Mr. Cleveland just nodded. Because one day, he said, he's going to write this book. Marcus stared at him, disbelief wrestling with a desperate hope. He didn't fully believe it, but he wanted to. He needed to. Then, just 1 month before graduation, tragedy struck. Grandma Lottie passed, and for the first time in his life, Marcus felt truly alone. She'd never missed a ceremony, never missed a moment. Except this one. Marcus stood on the graduation stage, barely breathing, clutching a valedictorian medal around his neck. Valedictorian. The boy they said wasn't smart enough. The kid they shuffled into remedial classes. Now number 1. But as he scanned the crowd, there was no Lottie Mae, just an empty chair, with her favorite scarf folded neatly on top. He held back tears as he gave his speech. But every word was hers. Every pause was a prayer. Every line was a memory. College was another battlefield. Marcus got into an Ivy League school on a full scholarship, but the whispers followed him like shadows. He's here because of diversity. He's a quota. He probably cheated on the SAT. In study groups, they ignored him, laughed at his notes, mocked his ideas. Until he left the room, then copied everything he'd written. He said nothing, but he remembered One night, a professor handed back an exam, 98%, and a handwritten note. Brilliant analysis. Have you considered publishing? Marcus stared at it, hands trembling, because for the first time in his life, a gatekeeper had opened the door instead of slamming it shut. And Marcus didn't just walk through that door. He kicked it off the hinges. He started tutoring undergrads, then grad students, then professors from other departments. Not for praise, not for clout, but for the kid he used to be, the one no one believed in. At 22, Marcus published his first academic paper on the psychology of nonlinear problem solving. The same kind of thinking they once called slow, now branded revolutionary. His second paper grabbed the attention of curriculum developers. His third? It landed on the desk of the very same company that printed the textbooks that once made him cry in the school bathroom. They reached out, asked if he'd like to consult. Marcus paused and replied, "I don't consult, I create." The next 3 years were a blur of code, content, and conviction. He founded a tech platform, Deeper Learning, dedicated to helping students who learn differently, neurodivergent kids, visual learners, slow processors, the kids the system forgot, the ones they labeled not smart enough. He built modules, videos, interactive tools, based not on theory, but on the way he had to learn. It exploded. Districts across the country licensed his program. College professors used it. National boards took notice. Then came the call. "Mr. Jennings," the voice said, "would you be interested in co-authoring our new national textbook series?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, smirked, and asked, "Which company did you say with again?" The voice named it. The same publisher whose textbook once left him sobbing on the tile floor in 8th grade. He laughed, not out of spite, but because it was poetic. Today, if you open that textbook, Chapter 7 bears a name, Marcus Jennings, Ph.D., his face, his story, his methods, woven into the very pages that once ignored the way his brain worked. At the press conference, a reporter leaned in and asked, "What would you say to the teachers who said you'd never make it?" Marcus didn't blink. "I'd say thank you," he said, "because their doubt taught me to believe in myself louder than they disbelieved in me." Here's the twist, the poetic irony of it all. Some of those teachers, they now teach using his curriculum. Some of those classmates, they assign his textbook to their students. And some of those critics, they quote his research at academic conferences, not realizing he remembers every single one of their names. The lesson? Intelligence doesn't have one face. It doesn't always speak fast. It doesn't always test well. It doesn't always show up neat, polished, and ready-made. Some minds take time. Some talents need space. And when they finally unfold, they don't just pass your test. They rewrite it. Marcus Jennings was never behind. He wasn't slow. He wasn't broken. He was just building something deeper, something stronger, something the world wasn't ready for. And when the world finally caught up, he was already light years ahead. So the next time they tell you you're not smart enough, that you don't belong, that you'll never be more than average, remember this. You don't have to fit their book when you're destined to write your own. This is Unbounden, where every setback is a setup for something greater. If Marcus's story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own worth, don't just watch. Share, like, subscribe, because the world needs more stories like this. Stories of struggle, survival, and triumph. And remember, never let them define your limits. When they say you're not smart enough, prove you're powerful enough to show them what smart really looks like. See you in our next video.